Nuclear weapons are the most dangerous weapons on the planet, capable of destroying entire cities, killing millions of people, and jeopardizing the environment and the lives of future generations because of their long-term effects. Each of us realizes that the threat of the nuclear bomb has always existed. Creation by Robert Oppenheimer and Igor Kurchatov. But in some years, it has been much more noticeable than in others. What does a nuclear explosion look like to humans? And how will they feel at that very moment? What is a doomsday airplane? And what is inside it? How many nuclear bunkers do the presidents of the United States and Russia have? Is it true that after a nuclear war, an ice age will begin on Earth? In today's video, you'll learn how to survive in case of a nuclear explosion, the consequences of nuclear war for people and the planet, a comparison of doomsday airplanes of different countries, and much more. As for the nuclear explosion itself, its main threat to humans lies in its power, which exceeds the power of conventional weapons by many times. The explosion energy of even the smallest nuclear warhead is equivalent to 10 tons of TNT, and in the case of more powerful warheads, their power is many times greater than that of conventional warheads. This enormous amount of energy results in mass casualties, especially if the explosion occurs in a densely populated area. There are two clear signs of a nuclear explosion: a gradual increase in tension or a sudden preemptive strike. In the first case, most likely we will learn about the growing threat from the media or official reports from the government. So, there will be some time to prepare and evacuate away from the possible target of a nuclear strike. Industrial and military facilities, large cities, places of mass gatherings of people, and so on. In the case of the second scenario, most people will learn about the beginning of the war when the explosion or siren sounds. We should remember that the time interval between the launch of missiles and the first explosions is about 30 minutes. So what happens after a nuclear explosion? Less than a second after the explosion, a ball of plasma appears, 2 kilometers in diameter, and 10 times hotter than the sun. Anything inside will be instantly wiped out. The flash is visible even if you cover your eyes with your hands, so those facing the direction of the explosion will immediately go blind. Those not in a specialized shelter within a radius of less than 1 kilometer are unlikely to survive. And within a 13-kilometer radius, the blast ignites anything that can burn: plastics, plants, skin, whatever. The shock wave that follows a ball of plasma travels faster than the speed of sound, so you won't hear it. The hot, super high-pressure air will blow away everything in its way, including trees, concrete buildings, and iron constructions. There will likely be many casualties within a 20-kilometer radius of the explosion. After the shockwave, the famous mushroom cloud consisting of radioactive dust and ash will appear, rising several kilometers above the Earth's level and creating a low-pressure zone. This will increase the probability of fires, the hearths of which could combine to become a firestorm. After another 25 minutes, the raised dust and debris begin to fall to the ground as a radioactive fallout. This happens not only close to the epicenter, but also at a significant distance from it in the direction of the wind. Open water bodies will be radioactive. Electricity and communications will be cut off, and a huge number of people will be left under the rubble of destroyed buildings and may die as a result of injuries. A nuclear explosion will be similar to a huge number of simultaneous accidents at nuclear power plants, man-made fires, and earthquakes. Mankind has never faced a catastrophe of such scale, so no one can evaluate the consequences. Several zones are usually distinguished by the scale of destruction. A zone of strong destructions. Here, almost all buildings, including reinforced concrete ones, are destroyed or damaged. Almost 100% of the population is killed instantly. For a 250 kiloton charge, this zone extends about 1.5 kilometers from the epicenter. A zone of medium destructions. Most buildings will be destroyed, and there will be massive fires. Most people will be seriously injured, but can be saved with medical assistance. Rescue services will focus on working primarily in this zone. It has a radius of about 3 kilometers. A zone of minor destructions. One of the main sources of injuries, too. Broken car glass, fires, and car accidents caused by temporarily blinded drivers. Radius of about 7.5 kilometers. A zone of dangerous radiation. Possible development of acute radiation sickness for people not in shelters. For a 250 kiloton charge, the area of contamination can reach several thousand square kilometers. Therefore, an important question arises. What to do to survive after the explosion? The flash of heat, of light, and gamma radiation itself during a nuclear strike lasts no more than a dozen seconds. Then radioactive fallout occurs. It is simply sand, dust, and debris picked up by the shockwave and enriched with radioactive isotopes. Both visible and very small. The main thing to understand is that the radiation hazard diminishes rapidly, especially in the first few hours. That is why the most important task for survivors of the flash and shockwave is to find shelter, at least for the first few hours after the explosion. There are about 15 minutes between the time of detonation and the time when the fallout begins. Basically, during this time, it is possible to get to the nearest bomb shelter, or at least go to the basement. It is clear that the best option is a specialized bomb shelter. But if it is not available, any basement or subway will work. The ground stops radiation waves better than plasterboard or wood. If you don't have time to find a suitable shelter, try to find a room farthest from the exterior walls and roof, which often contain radioactive materials. This could be a bathroom, toilet, closet, or storage room. If a nuclear explosion happens when you are outdoors, follow these rules. Never look in the direction of the flash, as this can cause corneal burns or complete loss of vision. Lie down on the ground and try to find a fragment of something or a hollow in the ground, which will serve as a temporary shelter. Try to cover all open parts of your body if possible. You should lie with your feet in the direction of the explosion, face down, and breathe only through a handkerchief, mask, or other cloth. If you're inside a vehicle during an explosion, stop, close any openings that let air in, and crouch down inside. You will need to wait out the shock waves, which sound like thunder, and then find shelter within 15 minutes before radioactive fallout occurs. Before entering the safe area, remove the top layer of your clothing. This will help remove up to 90% of the radioactive contamination and also reduce the amount of time you are exposed to radiation. Stay indoors for at least 24 hours, unless otherwise instructed by local authorities. And remember, the longer you stay in the shelter and don't go outside, the lower your risk of getting radiation sickness. Speaking of bomb shelters, leaders of such powerful countries as the United States and Russia have long had their own bunkers in case of nuclear war. Although the exact details remain classified, it is known that the construction of 2 bunkers under the White House began in 1942, shortly after the attack on Pearl Harbor. The first one, under the Treasury Building, to which an underground tunnel led from the White House, a spacious premises of 10 rooms, could accommodate almost the entire presidential administration. The second one is smaller, for 10 to 12 people, located under the eastern wing of the White House, and it was possible to get there from the Oval Office in a matter of seconds. During Harry Truman's time, it was expanded and named the Presidential Emergency Operations Center. It underwent renovations under George Bush Sr. and remodeling under Barack Obama. The main shelter of American presidents is located under Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. In the early 1960s, it attracted the attention of the military, as almost the entire massif consisted of granite and was able to withstand even a hit by an atomic bomb. A system of artificial caves was created in the structure. 15 metal structures have been placed there, 12 of which formed a 3-story building. All the structures didn't touch the inner surface of the mountain. They were installed on huge springs, each weighing 350 kilograms. The total usable area of the bunker is 18,000 square meters. Russian President Vladimir Putin also has several bunkers, but there is much less information about them. The first official data appeared in the United States Department of Defense report on Russia's military potential, which was prepared at the request of Donald Trump before his first meeting with Putin. According to U.S. intelligence, the Russian leader had 2 large bunkers designed to protect the country's political leadership in the event of a nuclear war. Each is capable of accommodating up to 10,000 people. One of these bunkers is located at a depth of 300 meters under the Kremlin, and the other is near Moscow State University. Both facilities are connected by a system of tunnels, which also makes it possible to reach Vnukovo Airport. 2 more defensive facilities are located 60 kilometers south of Moscow. They store supplies of food, fuel, oxygen, and communications equipment. In addition, according to a U.S. intelligence report, another bunker is located in Bashkortostan. It is built right in the Yamanto mountain. This information has also not been confirmed by Russian officials. However, defense measures are not limited to underground facilities. In case of a global threat, there is another type of shelter, the Doomsday Airplane. This is a unique aircraft capable of operating even under conditions of nuclear attack. Thanks to its enlarged fuel tanks, it can stay in the air for a long time without refueling, transport more than 100 passengers, and cover distances of up to 12,000 kilometers. There is everything necessary for autonomous operation inside the aircraft: a meeting room, a kitchen, recreation areas, and modern equipment for communication with the most important government agencies. Doomsday aircraft are easily identified by the distinctive hump on the upper part of the fuselage. The external unit contains a dozen antennas necessary for communication with military and government agencies in emergency situations. The US and Russian aircraft have a lot of differences. The American one has a system for switching between military and civilian satellites for communication. The Russian one has a unique transmitter for communication with submarines equipped with nuclear weapons. Such planes are always fueled and on constant alert, and the time of departure after receiving an order is about 10 minutes. Only top government officials, including presidents and defense ministers, can use such aircraft. The United States began developing the first Doomsday aircraft in the 1960s. In the mid-1970s, the E-4 Nightwatch, an airborne command post based on the Boeing 747, was already on combat duty. This aircraft was intended for rapid evacuation of the country's political and military leadership. The civilian aircraft was equipped with state-of-the-art electronics to ensure the delivery of orders to the armed forces in conditions of nuclear war. Only 2 countries, the United States and Russia, have airborne command and control centers. In Russia, the functions of Doomsday aircraft are performed by the IL-80, which is a unique model. Each aircraft is manually assembled at a separate factory, and the production of a single aircraft can take from a year to several years. The IL-80-based Air Command Center has been serving as a Doomsday airplane since 1985. Like the American Nightwatch, it is designed to operate when ground command and control centers are out of service, as well as to provide command in case nuclear weapons are used. However, even such precautions cannot prevent the catastrophic consequences of a nuclear strike. Just one warhead with a yield of 150 kilotons will create a radius of destruction of at least 8 kilometers if it hits a large metropolitan area. And this is far from the most powerful warhead available in the world. But it would destroy not only the city itself, but also its suburbs, resulting in the deaths of 10 to 15 million people. In the following weeks and months, another 10 to 20 million people could die from radiation and injuries. The first victims of nuclear bombing on both sides will die within minutes after the red button is pressed. After a few retaliatory strikes, the number of dead will reach tens of millions and hundreds of millions of wounded. If the conflict is prolonged even for a few days, at least half of the world's population, and at most 5 to 6 billion people will die before it ends. Most of them will die from hunger, cold, injuries, radiation sickness, lack of medical care, and the effects of nuclear winter. it is quite possible that life will be preserved only in regions remote from the epicenter of events. For example, Australia, New Zealand, or the outskirts of South America and Siberia. But what would happen to our planet? Experts from the University of Louisiana and other scientists have created several computer simulations to study the impact of a nuclear war on our planet. Here are the main scenarios. A slight cooling. The temperature would drop by 1 degree. There would be no significant impact on the human population. Nuclear fall. The temperature will drop 2 to 4 degrees. This will cause crop failures, increased hurricanes, and other climate disasters. A 10-year nuclear winter. The temperature will drop 10 to 15 degrees. Snow will cover almost the entire planet, except for equatorial and coastal regions. Hunger, cold, and epidemics may kill most of the world's population. Although there is a chance that about 50% of humanity will survive, the consequences will set back humanity's development by decades. There's also a risk of new wars for resources and territories suitable for life against the background of global cooling. In case of a new ice age, ice caps will start to grow not only at the poles but also towards the equator. It will lead to the death of most species of animals and plants, but the biosphere can survive. Humanity will be able to return to its previous condition only in 100 years. In more extreme scenarios, an irreversible global temperature decline is possible. This is a nearly impossible model in which the entire world's oceans would be covered by a thick layer of ice, and the temperature across the Earth would be comparable to the conditions in Antarctica. The land would also be covered in ice, and life would only survive beneath the ice coating in the seas and oceans. In all scenarios, first, the Earth would be hit by nuclear firestorms. These would release huge amounts of soot and smoke into the upper atmosphere. It would be very difficult for the rays of the sun to penetrate through them, resulting in crop failures all over the world. But here is the most popular scenario. In the first month after the nuclear explosion, the average global temperature would drop by about 7 degrees. It doesn't seem like much, but it's actually greater than the values the Earth faced during the last ice age. Even after the smoke clears, ocean temperatures will drop rapidly and will not return to pre-war levels. As the planet cools, sea ice will expand over 6 million square miles. The ice will spread to normally ice-free coastal areas, blocking marine traffic. The sudden reduction in warmth and light will kill seaweed, which is the backbone of the marine food chain. The inhabitants of the sea and oceans will not be able to eat properly. They will stop much of the development of fisheries and aquaculture. Even the worst-case scenario of nuclear war is much safer than the amount of smoke and particulate matter released into the atmosphere by the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. This means that some humans will survive and eventually repopulate the Earth. And extinction at the species level is unlikely even after a full-scale nuclear war. But the vast majority of humanity will die from burns, radiation, and starvation. The survivors will be forced to live on a devastated, barren planet. We hope that none of the above scenarios will ever happen. But the United States and Russia have a policy of mutual assured destruction, which is a powerful deterrent. It means that any attack on any country will result in the elimination of the attacker. Nevertheless, nuclear war is not impossible, but its price is a planet-wide suicide that will end without declaring a winner. Suggest your own theory in the comments. What would happen to the planet if a nuclear war broke out? We are really interested to know what you think. If you like this video, don't forget to support us with a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our new episodes.